The Letter is the 11th episode of the second season of Everybody Loves Raymond. This is directed by Halvorson, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I talk about this episode. And it starts off with Debra having a Tupperware party, and Ray comes in having forgotten that tonight is the Tupperware party. He's got some guys over to watch some sports, so with a little bit of reluctance, Debra agrees that they can go up to the bedroom and watch it. That seems like a terrible idea, having all of these guys eating all of these foods, whatever it was, I think pizza and snacks and goodness knows what, in the bedroom. I'd rather not. I would rather give up the Tupperware party, but nevertheless, this is the situation they have. And just as the Tupperware party is beginning, Marie comes over and Debra tells Ray that he must have forgotten to ask Marie to come over. And what I love about this is that Ray genuinely believed Debra. Debra's alone in the kitchen soon after, and Ray goes through and apologises for forgetting to tell Marie. And of course Debra reveals that he didn't forget because she never even asked him, which I just thought was absolutely adorable. There was a moment of relief washing over Ray when he realised that he didn't mess up. And as Debra feared, having Marie there meant things didn't go according to plan. She was saying things that were not very nice. They play this nighty game, which seems like a very bizarre game. Has anybody ever been to a Tupperware party? Is putting your nighties into a bag a normal thing? Seemed a bit strange to me. And then everybody just seems to leave early, and Debra is devastated that this Tupperware party did not go according to plan. And later that night, while she's in bed, she's writing a letter. And she said something that I actually thought was a really good takeaway from this, for anybody who's maybe in a similar situation. I'm not saying you should do what Debra did, but I think it was certainly very interesting. And she said, I can't keep blaming her for everything if I've never been honest with her. And I think that that's really true. You can't really keep getting annoyed at somebody for doing things that annoy you if you don't tell them that it annoys you. And I think that was an important moment of realisation. And Ray, understandably, tried to stop Debra from doing this. And Debra said some things that I actually personally don't believe. Debra said that Marie never wanted her to marry Raymond. I don't believe that. I think nobody would have been good enough for Ray in Marie's eyes. But I don't necessarily think that she never wanted Debra to marry Ray, because I think she cares so much about her son's happiness that if Debra does make him happy, then in a way she would want that marriage, but nobody is ever going to be good enough. And Debra also said that Marie is coming over to criticise. It's not that she thinks she's helping, but I actually disagree with that as well. I do think that Marie, in her own ways, is genuinely trying to help. And yes, she has a pretty lousy way of going about it, but I genuinely think that she thinks she's doing a good thing. So I actually disagree with a lot of Debra. Not that I'm trying to invalidate her feelings. I would probably feel the same way if I was in Debra's shoes. But for me as a viewer, I don't think that that's the situation. If you have a strong opinion on that, either way, I'd love to know what you think. Debra does write this letter, and the next day Ray goes over to ask if they've got the mail. And this really baffled me. But I think it's baffling me as a Brit. What I assume happened is that Debra put the letter in Marie's mailbox. But I'm just so baffled by the fact that there are no letterboxes. I just think it's such a strange thing to put something in your neighbour's mailbox rather than in the UK. We would just put it through somebody's letterbox so it would be in their house rather than at the end of their garden or wherever the mailbox is. So I found that to be really baffling, but I think that's more just because I'm British than anything else. Robert does come in and he brings the mail with him, and then Frank reads out the letter. And honestly, his reaction, I love Robert's reaction first. Robert kind of realised the tone of the letter pretty quickly, and he had a great reaction. And then after a couple more sentences, Frank started laughing at it. And I think Frank was laughing because, in a way, he agrees with what was being said. Absolutely, he loves Marie, but I think he's put up with this behaviour for so long that it's just very entertaining to him to find that somebody else is pointing this out to Marie. And then Marie, it's unclear how Marie is affected by this. Sometimes I think she's hurt by it. Sometimes I think she's more angry about it. And I guess it's probably a bit of both. She tries to write a letter to Debra. She goes to get a dictionary. And then Debra comes over. And it is one of the most awkward moments in any TV show ever when Marie comes back in the kitchen, and I genuinely had no idea where this was going. I've, of course, seen this episode before, but I couldn't remember it. And I didn't expect Debra to say that it was a mistake to send the letter, which is exactly what she said. And I think there's an important lesson there. Yes, I think it's good to have a conversation with your in-laws if they are doing things that really cause you a lot of distress. But if you're going to write them a letter while you're angry, maybe at least don't mail it for a couple of days, because chances are in the morning you will feel very differently about the tone you've used, if not what it is that you've actually said. So a couple of really important messages here, actually. And I loved Ray's response as well, because Debra said it was a mistake to send that letter, and Ray replied, "Now? You say that now?" After he'd basically begged her to not send it the previous night, which I thought was just fantastic. And Debra and Marie have a bit of a confrontation, and they're standing very close to one another, facing each other. It's beautifully filmed. I think the filming for this is brilliant. They got the angles spot on. And Debra explains to Marie, because Marie says that she doesn't feel welcome in Debra's house. And Debra says something to which Marie couldn't reply. And Debra says, "You're over all the time. You don't give me a chance to welcome you." And I think that's really true. If you're looking for somebody's hospitality, but you're constantly in their house, then you're not going to get that hospitality, because then it stops being hospitality. You're just invading their privacy. And if anybody's on the Marie side of this, hopefully that could be some food for thought. And I love the fact that Marie had no response to that, because it showed that actually in that moment she maybe realised that Debra had a point. And they say they love each other and they hug and it's really beautiful. And then they go over to get some bits of Tupperware or whatever it is. And I love the reaction of Frank, Ray and Robert. On the one hand, I think it lasted a couple of seconds more than it should have done, but that made it even funnier. Which is contradicting. I know I'm contradicting myself. But it did last a few more seconds when they were just all staring in Marie and Debra's wake. And it did last a few more seconds, I think, than maybe it should have done. But I still found it funny. and I just loved their reaction. And then we end with an indication that things may be slightly better between Debra and Marie. But Marie still has the upper hand, because she gets the letter, Debra's letter, out of the trash and locks it away in a kitchen drawer. Clearly, she's going to be using that as some kind of ammunition in the future if she needs to, which I just thought was very realistic. Very, very Marie. So I really enjoyed this episode. We had some really great moments. And I definitely think that there are some good bits of advice in here, whether you're the Marie or the Debra of the situation. I think there are some interesting things here. And ultimately, the letter is a really good episode.